week on Soundbites, Roundup Time. I'm Chris Herrington, and this week we welcome back Digital Director Holly Whitfield, who, like our podcast studio, was a winter casualty last week. Holly's back, but we remain out of the studio. This week, Holly and I are going to catch up on a few topics and discuss some recent Memphis food news. But first, you can find all of our food stories and this show in podcast form at dailymemphian.com, where you can also sign up for our This Week in Food email. You can also catch Soundbites Thursdays at 11 a.m. left of the dial at 91.7 FM, your crosstown radio, which broadcasts out of the same building we are recording in today, or subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your audio. And if you are a Facebook user, we encourage you to join our Table Talk group there as well. What's up, Holly?
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much. I was calling myself a climate refugee, but winter casualty also is a great term. So, but I'm warm, I'm good. My house is Pipe Fest 2024 is over, so we're good.
So on the scale of winter disruption, I lucked out on the good end of that. Like my Wi-Fi was going in and out, but like whatever. The one day I decided to get out and drive, it ended up being the worst day to do so. And so was an hour-long excursion that I shouldn't have done. The Daily Memphian office has got the worst of it.
For sure.
You are somewhere in the middle. What of your story would you like to share?
So I'll just keep it short, but I had two pipes burst in my house. They're kind of like inside outside, and so it wasn't too bad.
As I noted when we recorded our Grizzlies pod here at Crosstown earlier this week, we're out in the wild. This is a road trip for Soundbites this week. And, you're hearing the sounds of the city or the vertical urban village as it is. And life happens around us. You might hear a dog barking. You might hear a custodian rolling a cart. You might hear someone clucking like a chicken. You never know what might happen.
The latter is definitely what's happening. But you know what? The point is,
we soldier on, much like we did through the winter.
Yes, we keep going. I stayed with a friend, so I was safe and good, and we ate some good food.
You didn't have too much damage at your house, did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't have too much damage. I mostly just had to be there and be on call for a couple of days, but it was good. It's good now, rather.
You had me concerned because when it happened, it was not in the middle of the cold. It was after it was in the thawing, right?
Right, and that's when a lot of people found out that they had problems with their pipes.
I was not at home when we got the message from you that had happened. I was like, oh, maybe I need to go home and make sure this did not happen to me too.
Right. Well, and one pipe busted. I turned off the water. I went back. I turned the water back on to try to find it, and then that's when the second one revealed itself. So it was just a fun day, and hopefully.
I can't commiserate because this did happen at our house 3 years ago during one of these, and so I have been there.
It's just tiring, but like you said, we're on an adventure now.
Yeah.
We're displaced from our offices for some time.
You did not starve through the dark winter. You made it through.
Yes.
Do you remember how you achieved sustenance during the dark times, where no one could brave the streets, and all of the milk and bread was gone from the store shelves? What I noticed actually was the potato chips were gone from the store shelves.
Yes, the one time I went to the store, I noticed that as well. There was one.
So run on Doritos and
frozen pizza.
Yep.
Plenty of ice cream though, so I did get some ice cream, which is counterintuitive, but. Yep. So my friend and I combined our pantries, and we used up all of our cans of tomatoes.
Okay.
All of our cans of diced tomatoes. That's something you never think could happen in your life. But we had spaghetti, we had chili, we had really delicious Bananas Foster Eggo waffles. This was really just using all the creativity and everything that was in the fridge.
Food Networks can be all over you.
It really was Chopped.
The Eggo waffle, like Bananas Foster, yeah.
Yeah, it really was like Chopped. So it was fine. I ate good, and I was grateful.
I cleaned out some stuff from our freezer a little bit. I had some soup from Buster's Butcher that I had bought, so I ate some of that. And then I've tried to get into the habit of now making big vat is not the right word, but big pots of chicken stock and then freezing chicken stock to have for later. So I pulled out a carton of chicken stock and I made a sort of a Cajun chicken pasta Alfredo kind of situation.
That sounds amazing.
And my son and I ate that. But there was also a lot of frozen pizza action. There's always a lot of frozen pizza action in my house. My son likes to do post-dinner frozen pizza, so he'll eat dinner, and then 2 hours later, he's making a frozen pizza.
Okay, my brother does that.
When you're a 14-year-old boy, it's sort of like you're in the zone of like, just eat constantly, basically.
That takes me back.
So I'll cook a meal, and then he'll eat it, and then I come into the kitchen 2 hours later, and he's sitting there just eating a frozen pizza. Sort of the way my house works these days. We're batching it.
That's good. That's good. I forgot we did have pork tenderloin one night.
Nice.
Something found in the freezer. So yeah, you make it work. And then I was so happy to get like Mexican takeout after all that was over. Like it's good, but at some point you're like, okay, I'm ready for someone to serve me.
So last week we were going to put you to the test.
Yeah.
And when you were not able to make it, we put Eric to the test. And I knew that Eric was going to struggle with the test. He actually did better than I expected. Mm-hmm. We put him to the test of someone else's list, not my list, but someone else's a viral list from a few years ago of 30, particularly Southern foods. How many of you had? Eric has been in Memphis now for, I think he said 27 years. I think that was the number he gave.
Yeah.
So he had 22 or 30. That was higher than I thought. We were maybe a little generous on the scoring on a couple of those. He wanted to claim credit for tomato sandwiches, but he was thinking of like the little dainty tea sandwiches. And we're like, no. This is some crusty white bread with like
Duke's.
Just Duke's mayo and like, big slices of like, fresh from the garden tomato. That's what we're talking about. You, like me, are a native Southerner.
Yes, South Mississippi. So I think the
South
proximity...
Mississippi, Eastern Arkansas, meeting in Memphis. Yeah. This is a tale's old as time, basically.
Okay, so there's like... I think there's more than 30 on here. There's like 30,
39.
39. Okay, yeah. I got 30.
You just gave yourself an extra, because you said 29.
Oh, 29. You're right. No, right. You're right. 29. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to do that.
30 was my number. I don't remember exactly how I got there, but...
Yeah, I had a lot of these. I think the proximity to living like near the Gulf Coast, growing up there in New Orleans, I like all of the sort of Cajun ones.
What I'm sure there's a lot of overlap in mine and yours. I don't have the list in front of me. You do. I'm going to throw out a couple that are on my list that I'm thinking might not be on yours. Some of the more esoteric on mine. Fried squirrel. I think that's my most esoteric.
I have not had fried squirrel.
Yeah.
I just have not had the opportunity.
I wouldn't seek it out. This comes from having a grandfather, a country Arkansas grandfather, going squirrel hunting and bringing it home and frying it up and visiting during the summers. And I think only maybe once I had that. Oddly, on that list, like deer steak was not on there.
Yeah, I feel
like that's a real common Southern rural, I ate lots of deer growing up.
Right. That's not on here. I've had lots of venison, so... There's that. I did not know what burgoo was.
Yeah, that's a Kentucky thing.
I mean, I looked it up and I was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's debatable whether Kentucky's the South. Frog legs. Have you done frog legs?
I have not had frog legs either. Okay. I don't know, though. I feel like maybe...
So that's one I've done because they actually serve frog legs at my grandparents' catfish restaurant.
I have had gator tail. I vividly remember my dad bringing me gator tail on a stick home from somewhere when we lived in Bay St. Louis.
You can find that at concessions now sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
Fair food. So that's how I've had gator tail at fairs.
Yeah.
What about have you ever done chitlins? I've never done chitlins. Chitlins are very available to us, but I have never, that's a bridge too far for me, I think.
I feel like every time I have chitlins in front of me, there's something else that I want more than to go on that journey. Yes. So that's why, but I've kind of felt bad about that one. That's one I should definitely make it a point to try.
I agree. I think I said that last week. I feel like I really, not that I desire, but I feel like that's a box I should probably have checked at this point,
Yeah, it's not weird or crazy. It's just not
it's very common.
Had.
You go to Ms. Gurley's on, I don't remember what day of the week, maybe it's Fridays, but there's chitlin day, on the line. But speaking of that, I think that list left out a lot of soul food staples. There's no neck bones on that list, no ham hocks, no oxtail. Those are all boxes
Fish
I can check.
Spaghetti, even.
Fish and spaghetti, yeah. Well, beans and cornbread. And speaking of my grandfather who hunted squirrel, his favorite meal was basically beans and cornbread. And his favorite dessert was a big glass of buttermilk with cornbread in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's some country.
I want some cornbread now.
So what were some of the more esoteric items on your list? I had the fried squirrel. What are yours that you think I didn't have?
Let's see. I'm looking at the list. I mean, I'm sure you've had Hoppin' John.
I have.
I love that at Little Tea Shop. That was great. I don't know what's the most esoteric thing.
You got something on there that I have not eaten.
The gator tail.
Because I've done the math here. If I have two, if I
Okay.
have 30 and you have 29, and I have at least 2 that you have not had, that means you have at least 1. I think this math is correct. That I don't. You're so far incorrect in your guesses.
Yes. I mean, red eye gravy, chess pie, all of these things.
Those are easy.
Have you had rabbit stew?
I have not had rabbit stew.
I've had rabbit stew.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the one. I was like, I know that there's one on here. Yeah.
I actually ate rabbit at a restaurant in New Orleans once, but it was not in a stew form.
I actually had rabbit stew in Memphis, so that's interesting.
In a home or at a restaurant?
It was at Andrew Michael Italian Kitchen on one of their like no menu days.
Now,
They
see,
had
we noted this last week that rabbit stew is one of those things where the range is wide. That
Yes.
could be like, some backwoods Kentucky thing or whatever, or that could be like your finest French restaurant. Like it really depends.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I like that. But yeah, no, I had it at Andrew Michael actually, but who hasn't had po' boys though? Like as I was reading that on this list, I felt sad.
Yeah, when I gave the list to Eric, I sort of separated out, I think 14 things. I was like, even you, Eric Boritz, have had all these 14. and I think he had. And that was, shrimp and grits and some of that stuff.
Do you think catfish is like Southern specific enough to possibly need to be on this list?
I do. I think most people have had catfish.
Yeah.
But I think catfish is in other parts of the country is a lot more. It's not like fried chicken, which is Southern food, but also just American food. Mm-hmm. I think catfish is specifically Southern.
Right. I grew up eating a lot of catfish, and then like even the whole catfish that have the tail on them.
Yep. Eating
the fried catfish tails when I was really young.
Yes.
It tastes like a potato chip.
Catfish is my family sigil.
Yes.
So,
nice.
Also not on that list, particularly Southern, are various strains of barbecue. Here comes the segue. Mm-hmm. It's been a few weeks, but it's been, you were not with us last week. There was no show the week before because of the winter. Mm-hmm. So we have not had a pod since the announcement, the long-awaited announcement of Smoke Slam.
Yeah.
Smoke Slam. Mm-hmm. Do we have feelings? Oh, I know everyone has feelings. Do we have feelings we want to share?
I mean, I think you can probably hear my voice, sort of how I feel about it. I'm a little suspicious and I'm a little eye-rolly. I'll say that. But listen, that's fine. That's neither here nor there, actually, because I'm optimistic about this festival.
Yeah.
Like, it can be called that.
Okay, let's separate the event, which we've got more details about, from the name of the event. The name of the event sounds like somewhere between like poetry and professional wrestling. Like, I don't know. Like it's,
Yeah, or like a cannabis festival.
That's
like something like that is someone's first thought, probably.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, what are we?
It sounds. I know it's a contest, but it sounds a little bit too confrontational.
Right. You're right.
So it's like the big rig, monster truck guy should be reading the announcement about Smoke Slam. It sounds like Sammy Hagar is going to play Smoke Slam.
Maybe he will.
He could be.
Yeah, I mean, but it's fine. Like, it doesn't like offend me. I'm not like, oh my gosh, how ridiculous. Because how many names can you have?
Most names are disliked by people until they get used to them.
Yep.
I find.
Yep.
I think people roll their eyes at Crosstown Concourse. They're like, no one's going to call it that.
People roll their eyes at Memphis, and it's fine. This is the same.
I actually think the other name this is a food podcast, but the name they have, like their music festival, River Beat, kind of generic. It's fine.
Yeah, it goes with it. And also, I realize I haven't seen any of like the visual identity for this, like the branding, and that could give it more context that makes me like it better. Yeah.
So that's the name,
yeah.
Which we're both skeptical about. We'll get used to it. Whatever. It's not the end of the world.
Right.
You got to name stuff. The event itself, we got a little bit more details.
Yes.
Any feelings you want to share? And I'm willing to share feelings too, but I'm going to turn it over to
Make me go first.
I'm not going to leave you hanging as the only one expressing
Okay,
feelings.
good. I mean, like I said, I'm optimistic about this. I think for many years working in tourism, hearing over and over and over probably thousands of people like not understand the concept of quote unquote barbecue fest. And then you have to correct them. Like, it's not actually barbecue fest, it's contest, da, 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 da. So if you are trying to have this festival that's an actual festival, or at least some part of it is, from the beginning, that is branded and it's communicated that anyone can go and get barbecue. If they're able to actually do that, I think that is fantastic. A few years ago, my friends had a tent whenever they had the World Championship Barbecue, Memphis and May one, at Liberty Park, and they were near the entrance, and we kind of became the de facto like bearers of bad news to everyone walking in and being like, gosh, we're starving, where do we get it? And we're like, well,
you can get a pronto pup.
You can literally get a pronto pup right over there. And I'm on one hand, I'm like, wouldn't you look up anything about a festival like this before you go? But I also understand, like, you're coming in town to visit friends and you're not, trying to plan that detail. And you're like, oh, we'll just show up, like, it'll be fine. And so if they're able to do that, that's like the main selling point to me. I do think that it'll be interesting to see the competition between the competitions, and the branding and how all that's going to go. And the advertising for Memphis and May right now is very like, the big boys of barbecue are coming to ours. I'm not making that up. That's what they're saying. So then, I have no problem with that, but that is what their ads are saying. Okay. So.
All right. So there's
no girls allowed, first of all.
There's sort of two subjects here, right?
Yeah.
There's the nature of the event, right? Which is interesting to me. And then there's the fact that it's happening the same weekend as the other, right?
That's just.
And so as far as the nature of the event, we'll take the second first. Mm-hmm. It feels like just too much. Mm-hmm. Like, do it a different weekend. The fact that it's the same weekend, I feel like it's just you're going a little bit too far on that. I think it feels unnecessary to me, the direct competition thing. So, but set that aside, and just the nature of the event and the way that they're sort of suggesting it's going to operate is interesting to me, because I am of the opinion, and sort of to echo what you've already expressed. And I was on a team for a while as well, for a few years. I wasn't particularly active, but like I showed up and paid my dues or whatever. And so I was on a team for a while. So I have some experience about how it works from both a visitor standpoint and on a team standpoint.
Mm-hmm. I was on a team for 1 year, so.
Yeah, I was like maybe 3, but this was a while back, like a long time ago at this point, before we had kids. And so there is sort of this difference between contest and festival, right?
For sure.
And for better or worse, and I think it could be, it depends on your perspective, whatever. I don't think there's inherently right or wrong on this, but for better or worse, the Memphis and May World Championship Barbecue Contest, official name, is not even part contest, part festival. It's part contest, part series of private tailgate parties.
Yeah.
Which is all fine. Like, there's a barbecue contest going on, and like some of the big boys come in or whatever for that. And then it's just a series of people who have tents and they pay their money and they hang out with their friends and they drink, they barbecue, and they have a great time. Nothing wrong with either of those things. But the idea that let's try to do something that has more of a public festival style component to it around barbecue, I think is worthwhile.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting. And actually, in our table talk column we were doing it, I wrote a little thing about this maybe a couple months ago when it was announced, basically saying, like, there's an opportunity here to do more of a public celebration of barbecue as a culinary art or whatever, or as local culture. Whether they pull that off or not, I don't know. But the idea of trying to imagine a barbecue event in Memphis that is a little bit less of a strictly contest private party and more of a public interaction kind of thing, I think it's a really worthwhile thing to pursue. And I hope that they pull it off well. Agreed.
And that's why, like, Smoke Slam is fine. Call it what you want to call it. I hope you're focusing on, like, and I know that they are focusing on how it's actually going to work.
I'm not interested in, like, there can only be one festival, let's fight to the death. Like, that's what I'm not as interested in.
Yeah, but I mean, I think for teams, maybe
there's a choice to be made, obviously.
They're having to decide, and that's just weird to me. But pork and no los dos. Why can't we have both? Like, that's something I say all the time about a lot of different things, and it applies here as well.
You're allowed to have more than one of good things. I feel like I say this a lot when I do radio a lot, because I'll get asked about, if I'm asked about, say, some fried chicken somewhere. Oh, is it good as Gus's? I'm like, well, whatever. You can have more than one, like, you don't have to, Gibson says that's to be the only donuts in town or whatever, right?
No, you're only allowed to eat donuts from one place ever.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of people are kind of rubbed the wrong way by like the private party aspect of it. It feels like exclusionary. And my answer to that has always been like, I totally understand that feeling. But like, if you want to have a barbecue, this experience, if you want to have this experience, you can have this experience. You just have to pay.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Like everything else on earth. So I'm of two minds about it. And then I also understand the people on the teams are rubbed the wrong way by the way that this has all been kind of announced and unfolded in the back and forth.
No. It feels like, it feels messy in a way it didn't need to be.
Exactly. Yes. Well said.
All right, we got about 10 minutes left. Let's hit a few other food topics, of the past week. So, speaking of having more than one thing, we got lots of beer and burgers. It's not hard to find beer and burgers.
Yes.
We got some new beer and burgers coming to your neck of the woods, even more than mine over there in the Cooper Young area. Have you been to Jack Brown's Beer and Burgers yet?
I have not been to Jack Brown's Beer and Burgers yet.
They promise bold toppings. But not lettuce or tomato. I think the tomato thing was more of a seasonal.
Is it?
Well, there's a quote in Josh Carlucci's story about you can't find good tomatoes right now, which I think implies that in the summer we could have tomato. I would hope. I don't know.
That would be
or is it just a no vegetable zone?
That would be a totally different thing. I took it as a no vegetable zone, and I was like, "This is
these are real men eating real burgers without plants
the big
involved.
Boys of burgers. We are not allowed to eat a lettuce here." Not having those things.
I guess we'll find out this summer. Do they pivot into produce?
Oh, I'm going to go there as soon as possible and walk in the door and be like, are y'all trying to act like you're too macho for vegetables? Is it like, why? What's the attitude? Because I feel like they're trying to communicate something with saying like, no. You know what I mean? It's the same way that like Las Tortugas is like, if you ask for sour cream, you will be banished like from the premises.
No cheese
kind
dip.
of like that.
No cheese dip zone.
Yeah. Right. And everybody should like cultivate whatever atmosphere in their business that they want, but it definitely makes me laugh.
So there are 3 bold topping burgers that were mentioned in the story specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put those to the test. Do you want a mac and cheese barbecue chip burger?
Do I want it? Probably not. Will I eat it? Yes, I will.
The whole mac and cheese on sandwiches is a whole thing, and I reject it. I reject this whole trend. The barbecue chip thing is a little more interesting to me. Speaking of lettuce, it's almost like we need an element of crunch to our burger, and so the barbecue chips are replacing the lettuce. I don't know. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends.
Real many barbecue chips instead of lettuce on their burger.
Like it really depends on how this is. It's more like onion straws on a burger.
Yeah. Can you get sour cream and onion chips on your burger?
That sounds good to me.
It actually does. Yeah. I don't mind this. Right?
I'm a big chip sandwich person. Like sometimes I won't get a sandwich if there's not chips available. So this is a burger. So this is kind of different.
I need chips with like my deli sandwich. There's a texture thing where I need the chips.
Agreed.
All
Agreed.
Right. Cream cheese, pickled jalapeno, and pepper jelly.
So is this like all one like spread situation together?
I think it's 3 different
things.
Things.
Sprinkled on there. Yeah.
My thing is I don't like canned jalapeno. Like the jalapenos you sometimes get on pizzas or in your nachos.
Yeah.
I need a fresh cut jalapeno. Like if you want to pickle your own fresh jalapeno, like I'm open to this, like on a banh mi or kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't like the mushy canned jalapeno.
That is an important distinction. Something tells me in my heart that they are not quick pickling
Probably not.
Their jalapenos in a mason jar, but I don't know. I could be wrong about that.
Bacon, peanut butter, and American cheese, the Elvis.
No, thank you.
I'm not sure. I'm pro American cheese on burgers. I'm not sure I'm pro American cheese with peanut butter. I feel like there's other kinds of cheese that would make that more pass muster a little bit better.
Yes, I don't know what, but
some kind of more nicer white cheese kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know, like a crumbly something.
All right.
Yeah. Anyways, right. But as I'm looking at this, I'm like, it's giving elbow.
So if they did a burger in their Super Macho Burger place, if they did a Holly burger, what would the bold toppings be?
On the spot. I love.
Yeah, I should have warned you ahead of time.
On the spot. We're calling it on the spot, and it's gonna have guacamole for sure on the burger. It's gonna have like caramelized onions and I don't know about the cheese. It needs to be like, would feta be weird? That would be weird.
So I was going to go with feta.
Pimento cheese and guacamole? I'd try it. Yeah.
I'm a feta guy. I like feta. When I was in college, there was this diner that was closer to my dorm. My sophomore year, it was closer to my dorm than the dining hall was, and it was like negative 70 degrees or whatever in the winter. So I spent a lot of time in this diner. Shout out to the St. Clair Broiler, and they did a Greek burger that was like a Greek spiced burger with like not sprinkled feta, but like a thick cut slab of feta cheese, like on the burger, like with some tomato and lettuce. I really like that burger. That would be my a thick slab of feta Greek burger is what I would go for.
Maybe like some super sharp, very thinly sliced cheddar on mine, or even some like Havarti dill situation. Maybe I'm just naming things I like.
We'll bet at a time. A couple food notes we'll note real quick. Rockin' Dough is going into FedEx Forum. Seems like a pretty good idea to me. Pizza, local pizza in the arena. Feast and Graze is going in, or maybe has already gone into the Brooks in their cafe spot, which was Loaf. Good save by the Brooks, I think.
I think so. I mean, I was surprised by that because of all the controversy with Loaf. This
you get a local food provider. It seems to make sense. The food seems to make sense in the context. It's owned by a Black woman, and you had issues there with, frankly, just because this is all in the news. Like Coffee Black said, we're not going to,
That's why I was so surprised.
Yeah.
But this episode is already spicy enough, I think, for me to go into that. But I hope everyone has a great time and does well, and I'll eat at all the places. How about that?
I agree. So Feast and Graze going in the Brooks. Loaf, as I understand it, they're not going to go back to their food truck that they used to have. They're going to do pop-ups. They're still doing catering or whatever, but they're going to do pop-ups at bars and restaurants while they look for a new home, a new brick and mortar.
Yeah.
That seems to be the approach. And they were just on the Guy Fieri thing.
Yeah.
Along with half the city.
Half the city, yeah. And the Feast and Graze owner, Christina McCarter, is everything she does it really well. So
yeah, no, I think a really good fit. All around a good fit for the Brooks. So good save by them in terms of, because I think it was important for them to bring in another good local food option,
Right.
And they seem to have done so. So we hit a lot of topics this week. It's good to have you back, Holly. It's good that you're not like, floating in the water in your home anymore.
Yeah, like a polar bear
on
an iceberg. That was me.
So this has been Soundbites. I am going to be out of the loop next week, so we'll see what Holly or Natalie or whoever comes up with. I'm going to be out of town.
We will see, won't we?
We will see. But hopefully you guys will be listening to somebody next week. It won't be me, but I'll be back with you in the future.
In-depth journalism in the Memphis community. The Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.